So my name is Nina Shope, and I am going to be reading from my book Asylum tonight. It is a finalist in the 2022 Big Other Fiction category. In the amphitheater, Augustine blends the convulsions of saints with the spasms of sinners, miming crucifixion. Stigmata blushing her palms, her soles. She challenges the figurative nature of every metaphor, the hematomas so vivid that she truly resembles a martyr impaled at wrist and ankle, a zealot bleeding and suffering for her God. Sometimes he wishes her perpetual manifestations would cease, ease the mounting pressure to divine meaning from movements that seem increasingly meaningless. Her body on stage, a provocation that demands a response. Off stage, she is no less insistent, clamoring for his attention, growing petulant and preoccupied when she senses his discontent, her pathology increasing rather than abating. He seeks sanctuary in the amphitheater of autopsies, in the quiet precision of corpses, cadavers watching with glazed eyes as cuts are made, tumors excised, lobes of the brain exposed. The bodies lie on cold steel slabs, fluids drained into troughs below, congealed blood, bile, the contents of the bladder. Nothing remains concealed here. In the frigid air, breaths coalesce into vapors, tiny clouds that dissipate quickly, though few are released to trouble the air. On a table, a sequence of vertebrae helix into a tortuous spine, each bone boiled and gleaming, the marrow removed. Nearby, a brain rests on a scale, the crenulated folds crowned by a massive, fibrous clot, cerebral fluid filling the scale's bowl like a glistening crystalline lake. He can lose himself for hours in the minutiae of anatomy, the burden of time temporarily alleviated as he focuses on flesh that is preserved from perishing. In her presence, he is painfully aware of years elapsing. No longer a young man, he cannot help but note his declining physique, the decrease in muscle tone, the whitening hair, the inverse proportion of time allotted to accomplishments sought. Lately, I can find no pose to please you. When you approach me on stage, it is with a look of distraction, detachment, the same gaze that greets me inside your study as you point to a spasm, to the curve of my back, but without reverence, without awe, the arc of every limb grown tiresome. Weeks pass without you asking for a single seizure, your voice impatient and strident, cutting through the edges of things. From below, your face appears as a collection of angles, your beaked nose, your chiseled brow, sharp enough to inflict injury. You spend more time with corpses than you do with me, poring over anatomical charts and data in your study, coming out only to confirm a symptom or consider an incision point. In the amphitheater, you recite a corporal geography that I learned by heart, the thoracic inlet, the pelvic brim, the lozenges of Aphrodite. Behind you, diagrams of a body stripped of skin, the plush red muscles that clothe it from head to foot. You explain how to detach tendons, cut nerves, expose organs, marking dissection lines with the tip of your finger, elucidating the difficulty of cleanly separating skin from musculature, how the two seem to cleave together, threaded with fibers, veins, and fascia, the latticework like the lace of a bridal veil. From the pulpit, you address your congregation, the crowd fixated, their faces rapt. You say, our relationship with the afflicted is a marriage of sorts, a union until death, born of the flesh, bound by the body. Or perhaps, to be more precise, it is a perpetual betrothal, secured by the tantalizing promise of eventual penetration. After all, the autopsy creates an intimacy that is closer to consummation than any comparable act. I stop listening, repeat the phrases marriage, union, betrothal, consummation inside my head. Your words, all that have sustained me for months now. I've learned more about my condition from what you've said to others than from a single sentence ever spoken directly to me. Sessions spent standing on the stage like a player in a parlor game, a prognosis scrawled on a sheet of paper and affixed to my person, somewhere out of sight, a secret phrase that I must try to determine while you supply clues and code words to the audience, trying not to give the answer away. I've learned even less about you, scraps overheard in the hallways, morsels scavenged from your clenched jaws. I know that you live amidst a menagerie of animals, surrounding yourself with species that are dear to you. When you speak about the fragrant paws of dogs, the ways in which a bird's feather, when pulled back on itself, is even softer underneath than it is above. When you speak of these things, you become radiant, Maître, your face growing unguarded. And I think that you must be human after all, capable of adoration, but the impulse is seldom aroused, despite my best intentions. One day I pass you in the courtyard, stooped over a sparrow that has collided with a window pane. You cup it in your palm, careful not to startle it too severely, its chest palpating like an eyelid in the midst of a fever dream. You croon and chirr to it under your breath, assuring me that it is only dazed, as if I too fear for its life. But Maître, I have other fears, seek other assurances. You pass the tiny twitching body to me, our hands touching during the transfer, the pulse of a heart momentarily clasped in our palms, and I am moved by this gesture of trust, your faith that I will not crush it. I would transform myself if I could, drape myself in fur or feathers, become bird or beast for you. I would ruffle my wings and raise my hackles so you could smooth them again. I would stun myself in order to make you stare into my eyes, to watch your ecstatic expression as my body stirred once again in response to the benevolence of your touch. I've endured this public courtship patiently, accepted for the most part its formalities and limitations, all at your insistence. But how can passion withstand such a prolonged engagement, with every interaction supervised and every expression of intimacy so profoundly restrained? At times, I wonder if there is any part of you that wants a living wife. You show no hint of appetite, of arousal, as I sit before you, my hands between my legs, neck thrown back, the cold snap of metal, and your fingers even colder. It is as if I have lost you before I have even had you, your patience used up, your interest. Then something shifts, and I note the darkening of your eyes when you witness beauty, when you cannot look away. Emotions expressed in increments so slight as to seem imagined seconds after they pass. All I ask is to be your paramour, your partner. I have opened myself up to you, Maître. I have welcomed you under my skin, and I'm not sure how much longer I will deign to wait. Thank you very much.